Welcome everyone to Building Computer Vision Application with Azure Cognitive Services for Vision. We're so excited to have you here. You guys are all a bunch of very quiet audience though. Yeah, so we look forward to answering your questions. Okay. There we go. Okay. So please note that this session is being recorded. So I am Fisayo, and this is?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. Fisayo and I are part of the Cognitive Services for Vision team. And I'm super excited to be helping to facilitate today's discussion. I think we've got a lot of great topics, and hopefully you've brought a lot of really great questions as well. So joining us on the PM team, we'll have a few of our subject matter experts. We have Will, Cenyu, and Tonye, who will be joining us virtually for today's session. So just a couple of quick etiquette housekeeping items. If you are a part of our in-person audience and you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone so that you can state your question to the panel. If you're participating virtually, please leave your question in the chat and I will be going through to try and balance between questions from the in-person group and the virtual group. So we hope to hear from everyone, and I'm sure you have lots of really great discussion questions. So before we get started, Fisayo is actually going to give a quick overview of our state-of-the-art computer vision stack. So whenever you're ready, Fisayo.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. So we pride ourselves in building a robust portfolio of services that enable you build application that is able to interact with the world from a visual perspective, starting with our image analysis stack. For example, we have the caption. With caption, you're able to generate a natural language description of an image, the way you and I will describe an image. For that, we have two options. One, we can provide a comprehensive description of an image, and the second option is a detailed description of up to 10 regions within an image. Next, I'll talk about our retrieval services. With our retrieval services, we leverage the efficacies of vector similarity search. So with that, you're able to get more accurate and effective results. For example, with our video search, you can type a text prompt and you'll be able to find a specific scenario, a specific event within a video. Next is our image and our segmentation. With segmentation, you can actually modify an image for your particular use. For example, we have the background removal. With background removal, you can detect and select and separate a particular object or subject within an image automatically. This is very useful for enterprise scale image modification. Next, I will talk about our face services. With our face services, you can actually analyze the presence of a face. You're able to detect or recognize a human face within an image. This is very, very useful for when you talk about things like identity verification, touchless access control, and even for image blurring for privacy users. Then last but not the least is our spatial analysis services. With our spatial analysis services, you can track the presence and the movement of individual within a video. For example, we have our video summarization service. With the video summarization service, you can actually get a brief description of all the noteworthy events that took place in a video. For example, let's assume we talk about the keynote of yesterday. You can just upload that video and you get the brief summary of everything that was noteworthy within that event. In addition to the services I've mentioned here, we provide you the option to actually customize your own models also. So you can actually get your own image classification or image detection model by leveraging our base services. For example, we also have the product recognition. So if you have your specific product, you can train it with just very few data, and you can get the kind of recognition, the kind of results you're looking for your specific use case. That being said, a vast majority of these services I've mentioned here, they leverage our foundation model. We call that Florence. So Florence is a large foundation model that enables both vision and language tasks. And to try out the services, you can go to our Vision Studio and you can try out the capability, and we really like to get your feedback on that. So if you look at down here, you can take this picture or try out this URL, and from there you can test each of these services we're spoken about. So I'll let Kate now start with the questions.
Sure. Yeah, sounds great. So let's start with a question from our in-person audience, if anybody has anything they're ready to kick us off with.
So for OCR, oh yeah, sorry. Hi, so for OCR purposes, where would that kind of fall in this? Is that a capability that's supported, or and also kind of along with it, is there real-time computer vision capabilities as well?
I can answer that question. So OCR is a vision capability. Yeah. It's like our sister team. So yes, it's part of the vision capability, and it's something you can also do. So yes.
Amazing.
Awesome. Did anybody from our panel, because I guess folks can be seen now. Hey everyone. If anybody wanted to add anything to that particular question, feel free to come off of mute. It looks like we don't have any questions in the chat yet. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Kate, I just want to add one more thing to the question about OCR. So here, all the functionalities we have, those are basically based on Florence, the foundation model we have built in-house. So OCR is actually like different areas of research. So it's in parallel with the Florence foundation model. And then we also have a face research.
We just got a question in the chat, actually, so I'm going to start with that one, which is, what is the current best CNN to classify images, so convolutional neural network? This is an interesting question. So would Cenyu or maybe Will want to start with this question?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that changed actually over the last year is the transition from CNNs to visual transformers. So Florence, for example, is a transformer model that understands both images and language. And we saw that it outperformed a lot of the public benchmarks that traditionally CNNs performed quite well in. So tasks like here, image retrieval, captioning, segmentation tasks. So I'm not sure what the best CNN is to classify images. But I would say that what we have seen is that for the vision features, with the exception of OCR, as Cenyu mentioned, we've gone all in on the transformer architecture, and we'll continue to do that, especially with the models from OpenAI coming.
Awesome, thanks, Will. There were several hands in the audience.
On the subject of OCR, what about handwriting?
Handwriting. That's a great question. We do also provide support for handwritten text through the Read API as well.
Okay, thank you.
Another question. So Chris asked in the chat, are there any plans to increase the readable file size? It fails reading some of the files when a page exceeds 17 by 17. Does anybody from our virtual panel have insight into this?
I'm not sure about this one. I'll follow up and see if I can get an answer in the next couple of minutes.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Will. Also, if questions come in the chat from our virtual audience, people from the panel, feel free to comment on those as well. Okay.
Hello, how are you going? I'm just wondering about verification and specifically ID verification, and whether you've looked at like specific use cases, how much training has been, how much of the training data set is actually IDs. Can you add your own training data into this? Does the background removal, can you, for example, take the image out of a passport and then do the facial recognition to try and verify the person's face? Just some general comments on those.
Awesome. Will, I keep bouncing questions to you, but that might be a great question for you to answer.
That's a great question. So I think what we'd recommend is one on the verification services. There's a couple different models that you can choose from. And actually, I realized I misspoke earlier. In addition to OCR, the face models are also CNN still. But the latest model there is Recognition 04. And that one seems to work best for the ID card scenario. I don't know too much about whether the any customers have tried the combination of background removal on the ID card, then trying to do recognition on the face. But we certainly know that actually one of the main scenarios for face is comparing a photo from an ID card with a selfie to do some kind of identity verification. And that works quite well. And that's something that the team is working on improving in the future, specifically the case where people's appearance changes pretty significantly from the photo that was taken on their ID card, like many of us, that could be 5 years ago, versus the current selfie. That's something that the team is using, even the OneDrive Photos application, trying to use some of the technology developed there to improve that performance. There's no ability to fine tune the verification with your own ID card data yet. But you can choose you can tune a threshold on the verification. So on that recognition model, you can kind of test it out on your own data and then adjust the threshold to see at what point, do you kind of reliably get a good match.
Great, thanks so much for that context, Will. We had a question from the chat, which is, can you train object detection for 10 types of objects within an image, or do you need to chain each object into a new detector when training, when completing training? So since this is a customization question, Tonye, could you maybe take this one?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the issue here, because you should be able to train objects with 10 types, like I'm guessing tags of the items in an image. So I'm trying to understand when it fails.
Yeah, Paul in the chat, if you wanted to provide a little bit more context, maybe of where you're, which service you're using, we could help troubleshoot that.
And then for the next question, I see tag. Yes, currently, so we have a custom vision service, and then we have customization on UVS. So in response to your previous question, I was saying for customization based on Florence, we currently do not have edge support, but we're planning for that. And for custom vision, we're moving everyone, we want everyone to try out our customization service with Florence. So there's not, when you talk about exploiting models being improved, I think all of our focus will go towards customization for UVS.
Great, thanks. Any other questions from our in-person audience?
Thank you. And this one is kind of related to the ID card question, but it's a bit more specific. Is there any research being done on, say, aging someone and being able to identify, say, for missing and exploited children? We work with those groups to try to help agencies find these kids. So are there any types of applications or research in this area to say, here's what the kid looked like when they were 5, they could be 25 now, and any algorithms that could age and possibly identify through public video feeds or anything like that?
Super interesting question. Will, back to you for the face service.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and the most investment that we're doing in this area is actually related to the OneDrive scenario. So in your photo library, you tend to have your kind of entire life's history of photos taken of you at different ages, including for some of us when we're quite young, and we are trying to basically use the feedback from that to improve the model for those kinds of scenarios. So it's definitely an active area of research. I think it's still quite challenging, but that's something that the team is pushing on.
That's a really interesting question. From the chat, there's a question: how well does the video summarization function work? Which is a new feature that we are just releasing shortly. So Cenyu, maybe do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, if you go to Vision Studio, we have the video summarization only for the sample videos. Very soon we're going to offer that the video summarization for the video you can upload. So far, we have seen the summarization works pretty well. So it's basically, if you look at the summarization, it's basically can detect people, objects, and also events in the video, and then basically summarize, put them into a summarized like formats. So you're definitely welcome to try and let us know if you have any feedback.
Let me add to that. So if you sign on to Vision Studio, you can upload your old videos there now and get the summary. So like Cenyu said, we'd like to get your feedback on how the summary works out.
On the training and the image segmentation and recognition stuff, is there ability in the studio to do training with spectral images where you're looking at plants and other things, and you have, it's not just a pattern of like these 15 pixels in a block are going to make the image, it's these 15 pixels with a certain pattern across 4 or 8 spectral samples of that. So you're looking at crops or you're looking at trees, and you have very specific images coming from very specific imagers. Are you able to feed that kind of model into something general like this, or is it really restricted to just RGB at the moment?
That's a great question. Tonye, do you have thoughts on this question in particular, customization related? I'm not sure if we support broader than RGB at this point, but it's a great question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So I guess as a imagine you're doing farming. So you're flying your little drone, and you can get drones now that will shoot in 4 or 8 very specific spectral bands, but you fly over and over and over and over. So you have thousands and thousands and thousands of images of plants or crops or trees. And so you're trying to recognize certain like leaf conditions. But it's not just this one, but it's a color across 4 bands or a color across 8 bands. And often what you're looking for from a recognition perspective is a human would say, I'm looking for a pattern across these 7 pixels that represent an individual leaf. I'm looking for a pattern. Can you train the system with those?
I think you certainly can try. I think our customization service, depending on the clarity of the images, it will pick up on certain patterns depending on the clarity of our images, but I think you definitely can try.
Yeah, we had customers who basically look at the landscape from like an aerial image. So basically, this is like the grass, that is the sand, that is the house. So we do have customers who have this type of images. They were able to use our custom vision to train. But for the one you mentioned, yeah, I personally, I haven't seen any customer for that particular use case, but like Tonye said, you can definitely try it and let us know. I mean, if you have any feedback.
Absolutely. Awesome. So the next question from the chat. So could you elaborate on the potential for AI models to detect various product types within an image? So the example I gave would be different types of laptop models and makes in their OEM packaging. And then specifically to extract information from those products for record keeping. So such as serial numbers and part numbers and things like that. So super interesting question. Thanks, Jim, for posing that question. Cenyu, I'm curious if you've seen a customer that has a similar case to that, or if we've seen this scenario before.
Yeah, let me see. Try to understand the question. So from the serial number, right, perspective, or the part number, so that is basically can be handled by OCR as long as those numbers are like visible to human eyes. So the first part of the question, can you elaborate on the potential for AI models, various product types within the image? Yeah, so we do have the zero shots capabilities where we can recognize, oh, this is probably like a laptop, that is like a desktop, a different, different types of the product. But if you looking for specifically for your product, right? that might be the area you can use our custom vision to give like a couple of examples using the few shots to train our service for the particular product you have. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. So if not, yeah, if you can clarify, that'd be great.
Great, thank you, Cenyu. Questions from in person? Okay, great.
So for a few years, we have actually been doing vision analytics, building our own algorithms to predict equipment failure, kind of look at equipment that go downhole. I work in oil and gas, so, and kind of say, okay, this is damaged, this is good, and this kind of stuff. So when we use vision analytics to do that, would it be just training on the data that we have, or would also some LLM kind of component comes in and we ground it with our data? What kind of...
Great question. So maybe Tonye could talk a little bit more about our offerings for few-shot learning, which I think would be a great solution here.
Yeah, so I think you bring your own data, and it could be 1 to 5 data, and then the different tags for the different failure modes you want, and that's pretty much how it would work with customization.
But is there any global data that you would use, or it would be very expensive?
Yes, so it would be built off of the Florence space models, right, Tonye?
I didn't hear his question.
Oh, he was just asking if there's any, sorry, could you state their question again?
Yeah, so I guess I was asking, like, would there be, is it like an LLM model that you will ground with our data and make it understand in a specific context, or it would just be all our data and you end up training it with our data? And there's no LLM that sits anywhere.
We would train your data. So with Florence, it has been trained on a lot of data, but for your specific case, we would train with your data as well, on top of Florence.
Yeah, I can also add a little bit more into it. So, so we have a foundation model. Internally, we call that Florence. So basically, we use the name from the city of Italy, right, to symbolize the renaissance of computer vision. So the large language model is basically the modalities from the language perspective. So we built Florence, which is a multi-model foundation model. So what you would do is basically you provide your training data. Could be a few shots, or if you have more, it's basically building on top of the foundation model. So it's not starting from scratch.
Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Awesome. So thanks for providing the context on Florence. And if anybody else has questions on Florence, we can also come back to that, because I know we've kind of been using that term a lot. So thanks for adding that, Cenyu. A question from the chat was, can we import and export models from Vision Studio? And that's a great question. So at this point, we don't offer exporting models in Vision Studio. We do for our custom vision service, which is sort of a legacy experience. We do offer for Vision Studio the option to host it on the cloud or on the edge, but we're just not quite offering the export function just yet. So it's a great question. Anybody else from our in-person audience?
Like a gait analysis or musculoskeleton or human behavior type models in there? Like if you feed a video of a person moving, or in care facilities especially, is it able to identify like balance issue? I mean, things like these, physical movement, getting up, difficulty sitting down, stuff like that. Yeah.
That's a really great question related to some of our functionalities for body tracking. So do any of our panelists want to take this question?
Yeah, I can jump in. So yeah, this is definitely a very good question. So we used to have a product called Azure Connect. It's a camera with RGB D. D means deaf. So that product actually we have already deprecated the product, but we took the technology inside that camera as the SDK. So we have a private preview currently, basically called body tracking. So we basically track 32 points of a human body. So think of like your arm, your finger, your leg, right, and then your neck, all those different joints. We can keep track of the joint moving. So So for the scenario you mentioned, it's actually quite a complicated scenario. So there's a scenario like a fall prevention, right? So people in a senior home, in a hospital, I mean, when they will fall, I mean, there are certain symptoms that's going to happen, right? So that is actually very complex, like a problem to solve. But the DIS service actually is designed for that particular scenario. So if you have a use case, we're definitely, I mean, be very happy to talk with you offline.
Great question. Thanks. So George asks a question in the chat, which super interesting question. As we know, GPT-4 will support image analysis. What is the position for Florence? Will we leverage the capability for GPT-4? Maybe Cenyu or Will?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you all know, right? So, I mean, so we have this very close partnership with OpenAI. So, like all the services available through OpenAI will be available through Azure OpenAI. So currently, the image capabilities as part of GPT-4 is still enclosed the private preview. So it's not available yet. But as soon as that is available from OpenAI, we're going to make that available for Azure OpenAI as well. So your question is more from, I mean, how that model will be compared with Florence. So from the user perspective, that's going to be transparent, right? So depending on the use cases you have, because Florence has like a list of different capabilities, like you see on slide, image retrieval, like dense caption, background removal, right? Video search. So some of those functionalities are not available through GPT-4. So definitely, I mean, so you will see like offerings from us, like new offerings that you will be able to use to utilize the image capabilities through GPT-4. And where GPT-4 doesn't provide, you can continue to use Florence.
Great, thank you so much, Cenyu. Anybody in the in-person audience? No questions right now. I think we have a couple. Oh, go ahead.
I was just, I heard before there was something on the sound, or, sound classification or multimodal aspects of this. I don't know where that is. So if you're able to notice physical movement, sound, even some other senses, can it integrate them together to find more context and meaning?
Yeah, absolutely. Fisayo, do you want to?
Okay. What we have now is the vision and the language capability. We don't have the speech yet, but maybe in the future we'll also have the speech part or the ability to identify the sound also.
Got it.
Yeah, and also I can add a little bit more. So if you look at the video, right? So the one in the middle in the slide, there's a video search. There's also video summarization. So ultimately, we also want to analyze not only from the visual perspective, but also from the other dimension, which is the captions or the voice, right? Basically to present like a much better summarization. So the summarization will not just coming from visual, but also from the sound, from the audio.
Awesome. Great questions. Okay, I just had one in the chat that was a good question to pose. Okay, so Daniel asks, is there an Azure service that will allow me to ingest a video feed? So example is MJPEG for integrating with Azure Computer Vision. So if there's more context to the specific use case around that question, it would be great if you could add that to the chat. But also if folks from the team maybe want to take for ingesting a video feed. I think I just maybe want like a little bit more context to this question, because we do offer, so for example, in Vision Studio, if your interest is around video search or summarization, we are offering a feature now to upload your own video. The ingestion will take place right in Vision Studio, indexing will take place in Vision Studio, and then you can actually begin to search that video to try out this functionality right in the Studio experience. We're not currently offering the APIs. Those are coming in the very near future. So if anybody has interest in trying those out, you can find the link in Vision Studio to apply for access to that. I know that might not be exactly what this question is targeting, but
yeah, and also I can add a couple of like a more points. So so if you look at the video search, right? So sometimes there's a use case where you probably want to connect the video search with like a camera, right? So with a video feeds in real time or near real time. So that is something we're working on. So right now the video search is more for the offline videos, but the real time we have seen demands from many customers and partners. So that is something we probably will support in the future. And that is actually related to another product we have called spatial analysis. For spatial analysis, so you can basically connect video feeds with our AI models, and then we can analyze basically directly from the video feed. For example, people counting the vehicle counting, and then a couple of other things. And then same thing for the product recognition. So that can be connected through like a video camera as well. So imagine, that means you're in a like a checkout scenario, right? So the video feed is coming out from the station. So that video feed can be fed into our service product recognition.
Great, thank you, Cenyu. Question, did you have another question?
So I just wanted to add that one of our colleagues gave a presentation yesterday with examples of the scenario. I think you should go and look at the video and you might get more ideas of how you can use the services.
Do you know what the session was called, Fisayo?
It's called Building Computer Vision Application.
I think it was the full session for building.
Yes, the full session yesterday, yes.
Yes, yeah, that should be recorded and available shortly.
It might be redundant from that session. I didn't go to it. So when we upload mountains and mountains of training data, and then it's affecting the model results that we get back when we actually submit trials against it. What happens to that training data and the learning and the training results from it? Does that stay proprietary to the individual tenant who's uploading it, or is it fed back into your model such that, so the insights that are coming from our training data, if our competitors are using your model, did the model all of a sudden get really good for the competitor, even though they don't see our images? Is the model being improved?
That's a great question. I think Fisayo is ready to answer.
Awesome. So I just want to highlight that we do not use your data to train our model. It's your proprietary data, and we do not interact. It's just used for your own specialization, and that's where it ends. So we do not use your data in any way to train our models. No, it doesn't. We don't do like feedback loop with your data.
Exactly. Well, we don't do a feedback loop that contributes to a larger model, but we are working on plans for sort of an active learning loop. So as you've trained your own custom model and it continues to ingest data over time, we're working on an experience to validate that the model applies a pre-label to your newly ingested data. You can validate that looks good, and then it continues to improve the model over time. But again, that's still going to be your own model and your own tenant. We're not actually gathering that data for any larger base model.
So it's going to be used to only improve your own custom model and not any Microsoft model.
Exactly, yeah. Yep, great question. Okay, let me take a quick look at the chat. Okay, another question on Connect. Is Azure Depth Platform / Connect dead? Are any services or AI products planned for depth point cloud 3D data? Any folks on the panel want to address this question?
Yeah, so
Cenyu.
That is the service I was mentioning earlier about the body tracking. It's a 3D body tracking. So we basically take the core technology from the Azure Kinect camera and then make it available as an API. So that is in private preview, so not publicly available yet. Yeah, if you're interested, definitely reach out to us.
I was thinking maybe you can respond with the links, Cenyu, to the person asking.
Yeah, so because it's private preview, so yeah, we don't have any public link for that service.
It's kind of a follow-on question to that. Same question, but in relation to the HoloLens 2 device with hand tracking and some of the neat stuff that was with the HoloLens 2 that's also now been kind of backburned. Same question. Is there still research there? Are those models going to be used in any other applications, or can they be?
Yeah, we're not familiar with the HoloLens. Yeah, so that is a different organization. So yeah, we might be able to connect it with you to that organization.
Yeah, if you want to follow up afterwards, we could find the right contact. We could better answer that question for you. Okay, I think we're still looking. I don't see any. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Next question.
You just answered my first question about the real-time video, but is there anyone using like a low frame rate, just like images coming through to kind of mimic a video simulation? Is that kind of is that something that's practical to do right now? Just to kind of simulate having real-time video with low latency images?
Really interesting question. Cenyu, maybe through some of our customer experiences, I know we have some customers we work with that have really like low latency. And so maybe Cenyu, you could talk about, I don't know if we've seen a similar scenario.
Yeah, so did you mean the inputs is like a frame by frame instead of like a video feed?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so so if you look at the some of the services, like behind the scene is actually image analysis. So even it's a video feed, we basically take the frames out of the video. It could be like 1 second per frame, or could be like 30 frames per second, and then process those frames as the images. So if you just feed image by image, yeah, so it depends, yeah, I mean, so how you want to use it, because for one of our services, spatial analysis, we actually accept RTSP as the protocol for the inputs. But if you just feed like as images, so we won't be able to accept those images. But through image analysis, I mean, so we accept individual images. Yeah, so I'm not sure if
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, yeah, there are some examples. So actually our video indexer product, they, I think, are feeding through like 2 or 3 frames per second to do things like tagging. So it's possible, but it really depends on the scenario.
Great question. I don't see any new questions in the chat. It looks like the panel is addressing a lot of those. Anybody else?
Okay, looks like there's a question about can we import and export models from Vision Studio? I think you answered that.
Yes. Yeah, yes, I think I can touch on that one again. So we right now currently there's no we don't offer the option to export models from Vision Studio directly, but we do offer support for the hosting in the cloud and on the edge as well. So this is a service that is offered through our custom vision service, which I think, Tonye, you might have touched on a little bit on the difference between custom vision and the new customization service, which is Florence-based. But maybe actually if you want to mention that again, the difference between the two, since we do offer model export via custom vision.
Yeah, so custom vision is our GA service that the base model is in Florence-based. We do allow users to currently export their model from that service, but with our customization service that is Florence-based, we do not currently have that, but we are working towards providing edge supports on our containers.
Awesome, thank you. Questions from our audience?
How soon is edge support for containers? Oh, are you mic? Hi, long-time listener, first-time caller. When is edge support going to be available for specifically for few-shot learning in the new Florence version of the custom vision service?
Great question. Tonye, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. We're hoping in the next couple of weeks, so within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we are taking a list of customers who are interested so we can contact them immediately once it's available in private preview.
Great, thank you, Tonye. We have a form in Vision Studio, which you can find in the video search and summarization feature, where you can actually apply for to be notified about access to the private preview APIs as they come available. So that's a great point to reach out, or if you're in the in-person audience, feel free to chat with us afterwards. Great question. I think any other in-person questions? Because it looks like our chat is. Oh, and actually, also a quick reminder: this is the 5-minute warning, so we have 5 minutes left in our session. So we'll try and take a couple more questions from our in-person audience, as well as a couple more from our virtual audience. So.
Is it possible to build some kind of training model? So let's say there are 100 people in a care facility, but you don't fully have their facial or image, but you have enough parameters to be able to identify. So any data you are tracking stays attached to them without them having to register themselves all the time. Like passively sort of being able to identify people based on height, gait, some, back of the head, I don't know.
Right, so not using facial recognition, but using other, So gait recognition, that's an interesting, I think that's also maybe a part of the body tracking service, but Cenyu, do you have maybe a little more context you could add there?
Yeah, so things like the gaits, right? So that's part of the biometrics. So currently, we actually do not offer that as a service. So that's basically part of very similar to our facial recognition. If we do offer, it's going to be like a gated service as well. But currently, we don't have that service.
Will, do you want to add to that?
I don't have much more to add than what Cenyu said.
Okay, awesome.
Cool, super interesting question. Great, thank you for that. And so a question about the link for the form or contact info, I can definitely share that in the chat just after the session is over. So it can also be found in Vision Studio, which is the link at the bottom here. So, but I'll provide the specific link as well. Somebody have a question? Any other questions? Okay, over on this side. Sorry, Fisayo.
Yeah, that's awesome. There you go.
Hi, I'm not sure. I'm new to Vision Studio, or I didn't attend the panel. But is there any plans for any kind of video transcription capabilities? I know, just looking at this feature set, it would be like dense captions or video summary, and then like object recognition. But transcripting a video and creating kind of like a script, like a video, like a movie script or something, as an example.
Awesome question. Will, I might call on you to answer that one.
So there is a transcription service. I'll drop the link in the chat. That will just go kind of the straight audio transcription. I think the video summarization is the closest thing to kind of describing the visual features of what's going on in the video.
Awesome. Thank you. Question in the chat is, do video search and image search use the same algorithm at the back end? Maybe Will or Cenyu, maybe one of you could address this one.
I had added, yeah, so they're both using that Florence Visual Language Foundation model, and to kind of understand the image content. For video over time, there will also be a temporal aspect, so it's a little bit more complicated than the image search, but same underlying AI models.
Great, thanks for that. One more question from our audience before we wrap up.
Sorry, this is just another follow-up along that vein again. If you because you mentioned the spatial analysis that you kind of add to the video, right? If you were to string pictures together, could you get like a sort of spatial analysis also, and just call it a video? Like, let's say that like you were 5 seconds behind the video, and so you're sending some stuff almost kind of real time in short bursts. Would that be somewhat effective in the spatial analysis and recognizing things continuously?
Cenyu, I see you thinking about that one.
Yeah, it actually depends on the use cases you have. What problems like you are trying to tackle? Because spatial analysis was designed to specifically solve the problem to understand how people interact with their surroundings, how the vehicles interact with their surroundings. So if the purpose of streaming those images is for that purpose, I think it can definitely work. But at the same time, you can also use our image analysis service to get the insight instead of using the spatial analysis, because that's basically designed for a different purpose.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Fisayo, you want to close us out?
Yes, thank you so much. This has been a very interactive discussion. Yeah, like we've emphasized, please try out our service at aka.ms/Vision Studio, and we'd like to hear back from you. And if you want to ask us more questions, we don't need to stop the discussion here. We'll be right across the hall, and we're happy to answer any other questions you have. And also, we'd like to understand how this session has been. Please give us some feedback. Let us know how you found the session and how you think we can improve this and make this better for you. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.